Get the guards there. Protests over Gaza have been part of the political landscape since the war started last October. Palestine will be free! But now the tone has shifted. At last month's Victoria Labour Party conference in Melbourne, demonstrators were flexing their voices inside and out as attendees struggled through the crowds. Federal Labour MP Daniel Molino was one of those who was jostled by protesters. That was before an escalated campaign that caught his electorate office in its sights. This video, posted on social media, shows windows being defaced and smashed. Molino's office was closed for nearly 2 weeks to repair the damage. The night before it reopened, it was hit again.
Taken us a week and a half to get the first lot of damage repaired. The first lot of damage was these glass panels were broken with a hammer the Friday before last, and then basically the day of that being fixed, this has all happened.
Molino says he's worried this type of graffiti could scare off constituents. Clearly, not everyone here shares those concerns.
The electorate officers are really here to help people emailing or calling or walking off the street with individual concerns, and this...
Right on your head, that's right. That is right. You do not represent us.
That's artwork. It's beautiful. You suck, man.
Molino believes the recent protests, which have seen several Labour electorate offices damaged and occupied, have gone too far. Do you think we've crossed a red line here in terms of what you're seeing in these offices?
When you get to smashing up the glass at the front of an EO, or when you get to constantly vandalising the front, so it has to be cleaned up relentlessly, I think it's going beyond expressing views to the point where it's criminal damage at times, but it's also intimidating.
You know, on social media, we have posts which target people personally.
The concerns from the government go much further. Foreign Minister Penny Wong has spoken about the threat posed to social cohesion.
We have a right to peaceful protest in this country, but we should rightly condemn protests which are violent and which are hateful and aggressive.
And the Prime Minister said those behind the recent vandalism at electorate offices and the US consulate in Sydney have no place in a democracy.
Those people, whether it be that or throwing bricks at windows, or whether it be painting of offices or the US consulate or other buildings, do nothing to advance the cause.
On social media, groups opposed to the war in Gaza and the Australian government's current position host similar content. Groups such as Whistleblowers, Activists and Communities Alliance post videos of protests at MPs' offices, but often don't claim responsibility. Other local groups do, such as Darabin for Palestine in Melbourne, which has repeatedly targeted Jed Kearney's electorate office.
It's the biggest movement of our time. It's huge.
Organisers say if it feels like recent protests have ratcheted up the intensity, that's the idea.
We've tried protesting in a respectful way. We've been writing emails, we've asked to meet with our local MPs, we've written letters, we've done all the nice things. They've ignored us. And the escalation is symptomatic of a whole pro-Palestine movement in Melbourne that is really sick of our Labor MPs not listening.
Palestine will be free!
At the end of May, a day of action saw coordinated protests at electorate offices across the city. Some of Labour MP Peter Khalil's staff needed a police escort to leave his office after it was surrounded.
Ceasefire now!
Khalil's constituency has a large Muslim and Arab population. He doesn't like where all of this is going.
Well, I'm deeply concerned about social cohesion in this country. The multicultural community that we have built up in Australia it's not a miracle. It's actually happened through generations of goodwill of Australians.
Children, not a target!
Khalil's office has been the focus of protests since the Gaza war started. But recently, he said, it feels different.
I support peaceful protest. It's a fundamental democratic right of every Australian citizen. But when it crosses the line into hate speech, physical harassment, violence, it's unacceptable and it needs to be called out, because then it becomes a real direct threat to the practice of democracy.
But Natalie Farah from Disrupt Wars, which supports anti-Gaza war protests, believes sometimes property damage is justified.
If some people are choosing to express their fury by breaking a window, then it is their choice and their responsibility. But what we need to be looking at is our government's reaction to that, and the fact that, did it actually have to come to this? It should not have come to the level of people feeling like they need to break a window in order for their governments to listen to what it is that they are saying.
There are signs tactics like these don't play well with the majority of Australians. Focus groups have revealed many are deeply uneasy with the war.
There's this deeper sense that the social fabric in this country is beginning to fray. So the war in Gaza feeds into that sort of broader sense of fraying global tension.
And research director Simon Welsh said many in focus groups don't want the war in Gaza to make divisions here worse.
There's like a pride that we don't have those sorts of tensions here, and they want to keep it that way.
But protest organisers don't sound like they'll be shifting away from escalating tactics anytime soon, because they believe they're working.
I think we are having an impact. We are rattling them. We heard Albanese last week, reiterating that, oh, hang on, we have called for a ceasefire. Well, that's not good enough. We want more than meaningless words. We want action. I think we're having an impact because they're rattled. They're talking about it. You're doing this story.